Hello everyone and welcome to Farm Bureau's Voices of Agriculture, brought to you this week by the Mississippi Farm Bureau. On the show this time, we have a feature about a seminar for law enforcement that teaches them how to handle farm animals.
Farm animal welfare is important to everyone. Whether you're a farmer, it's important for your bottom line and your profitability. But it's also important for our consumers to know that the cattle and livestock on Mississippi farms and ranches are well cared for and have the utmost farm animal welfare.
We visit a training session taught by the Farm Bureau Safety Department about being safe around grain bins.
We'll submerge a victim and chest deep in grain, and then we'll get the responders in and we'll set up a grain cube and a rescue auger and we'll safely get them out.
Then we go to South Mississippi to visit a plant that produces wood pellets for use in energy production.
We're still taking, poor, damaged, degraded wood, the worst the forest has to offer, and we're offering a market for it. We just have a different end use. But quite frankly, we're making a great improvement to the environment, right? It's 80% carbon reduction through our power plant, which is tremendous when you look at other alternative green energy solutions. This one is renewable, sustainable.
In our Meet a Farmer segment, we meet the 2015 National Young Farmer of the Year, who's from Webster County.
The rotation has really benefited me. I mean, that's my key. I'm making good crops, no irrigation. I don't want to get any smaller on the row crop. I want to keep a peanut, corn, cotton rotation. And even though I hadn't planted cotton in 2 years, but I'm going to put that back in there. That's what got me here, and expand on my produce.
Nancy Freeman will also be here to show you a tasty catfish dish, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. With the recent news reports across the state and nation about cases of farm animal abuse and neglect, there's a growing awareness of animal welfare from the public. So there's a need for industry experts to become spokespeople for these types of cases. If you live in Mississippi, chances are you've seen cows that have escaped the pasture and are wandering down the public road. If the farmer's around, he can pretty easily round them up. But what if he's not? Law enforcement is usually called, and they need to know how to handle farm animals safely and correctly. That's the purpose behind a series of workshops held across the state, to teach law enforcement and others what to do and not to do around farm animals. The workshops also covered how to recognize animal abuse by showing them the difference between an abused animal, a neglected animal, and the normal stages of an aging animal.
I think it's a great way to give people an idea, especially in law enforcement, what is acceptable and non-acceptable practices in animal agriculture. And of course, my species being equine, the horse really poses a different aspect of agricultural management compared to some other livestock species, based on surely that the animal is a different production animal than our other normal livestock species.
Farm animal welfare is important to everyone, whether you're a cattleman, a horse enthusiast, or a consumer. This large group of agricultural organizations provided this training to law enforcement because many times they are the first to get notified of potential farm animal abuse or neglect.
One thing that we're talking to the law enforcement about today is body condition scoring in cattle. And we know that a lot of times when people drive down the road and they see a cow that may be a little thinner than what a consumer may think she should be, we want them to kind of know the story behind that cow. So in some cases, a cow may be lactating and feeding her first calf, and she may be in a poorer body condition score than a cow who, let's say, hasn't calved in a year or so. So we want to kind of point out some of those differences, talk about the differences between dairy cattle and beef cattle, and talk about the stages of production that a cow might be in that might affect her body condition score.
Rutherford says that farmers want healthy, content animals.
I've never met a single farmer that doesn't believe in animal welfare. And I think when we see cases of animal abuse or neglect, in 99.99% of those cases, we see that it's just a lack of knowledge and understanding. Most farmers will use best management practices in most every aspect of their production, from supplemental feeding to rotational grazing. It's different for each system and different scenario, but most farmers will employ best management practices on their operations.
There are a lot of factors to keep in mind about whether a situation is neglect, abuse, or normal living conditions.
A body condition score is an effective tool, but not a hard and fast rule of different types of horses, because we have horses that are, even in performance, could be high level or a high level of exercise, low level, moderate. We have late gestating brood mares that need a different nutrition level. We have different ages of horses that could affect what their body condition score acceptability is and non-acceptability. So that body condition score system is a good rule of thumb, but definitely some of the management practices in consideration of age, use, breed even, are things that definitely affect whether or not we could classify that as acceptable or not.
Jackie Knight has been the sheriff of Newton County for 20 years.
It was very beneficial as far as law enforcement, because we get a lot of calls now on horses being abused, basically more than cows. We get a lot of animal calls about horses, about being abused, not being fed, not being taken care of. This gave us something to go on as to, they showed us the condition of horse, how to tell the condition of a horse. And this was very helpful on that. Now then we can go out and judge and say, well, it was neglected or it's being abused. I never known until today, you know, there was a difference. But there is a difference between neglect and abuse, so it was very beneficial on that.
Well, farm animal welfare is important to everyone. And like I said earlier, whether you're a farmer, it's important for your bottom line and your profitability. But it's also important for our consumers to know that the cattle and livestock on Mississippi farms and ranches are well cared for and have the utmost farm animal welfare.
The Mississippi Farm Bureau recently acquired a grain bin safety demonstration trailer that's being used to raise the awareness of how dangerous grain bins on farms can be. Large volumes of feed and grain are commonplace on many farms. Storing and moving the grain are routine activities that have the potential to become dangerous, even deadly. That's why the Farm Bureau Safety Department has designed a grain bin safety program to teach farmers and first responders the proper things to do in case of an entrapment. The first part of the class is a PowerPoint presentation.
We want to tell them the proper things to do, where the individual is sunk up to, what steps to take on properly getting somebody out. Because unfortunately we're hearing about it around the state and even all over the nation though, is people that are just submerged in grain waist or chest high. When the proper steps aren't taken, things can turn south and go downhill real fast and we'll lose a life.
After the classroom portion, the students get to reenact an entrapment using the new demonstration trailer.
We'll submerge a victim and chest deep in grain, and then we'll get the responders in and we'll set up a grain cube and a rescue auger and we'll safely get them out. And it's a creepy feeling being in the grain because you think it's a gut reaction. If you're only waist deep, you can think you can still move your legs and stuff, but you can't. And once we get them chest deep, they're asking us to cut it off because you're getting into panic mode by that time.
The average grain bin rescue takes about 3.5 hours. The key to getting someone out safely is the use of a grain rescue tube.
When the rescue tubes arrive, our rescue tube you build on top of the grain. It comes in 4 parts. We'll build it on top of the grain and then we'll work the rescue tube down as far as we can in the grain. And the individual will start getting the corn out if he's able. If he's not able to, we'll wait on a rescue auger to get there and then we'll get the grain out from the tube. The tube only allows the corn that's around him. It doesn't allow any more corn. It doesn't allow for any slides or any bridging to come up. So it keeps the individual or the victim safe while he's inside the tube. And it won't allow him to go down any further.
Most people think that if you sink a little bit, you can get yourself out, but that's not the case.
And you don't realize how much pressure is on you while you're in. I guess I had the mentality of most people having going into it. I'm only waist deep, and that bin is a 1/16 of a large bin. I can get out of that, and there's a lot of pressure, and you can't move. We sunk an individual a few weeks ago, had on shorts, and when we brought him out with his shorts on, there was indentions all around his legs for the rest of the program.
Barry Corley is an instructor at Mississippi Delta Community College that hosted this training session. He promoted it because he's seen the need for it in his community.
We have a lot of grain bins on the farms now, and we're having a lot of people coming in contact with these bins, whether it's being farm workers or whether it's being people at the grain elevators. We've had a lot of people come in contact, and we've had a few accidents here the past few years, and You know, if we can come in and train these people and save one life, you know, we've done what we set out to do. Just cutting back on accidents around, knowing what to do, or basically what to do until help can get there.
Kelly Davidson is a rice and soybean farmer in the Mississippi Delta. He brought several of his farm workers to the training.
It's definitely something you don't ever think of happening on your place. So to get the information that we've gotten today and to be able to take that back home and then actually sit down and look at your setup and the things that you could do. And you may not be able to do everything exactly like they presented it, but to fit your needs, I guess, is very, very helpful.
You don't normally think of what the danger is on the inside. And of course, from what we saw a while ago with the demonstration, it really opened my eyes to some things too, because a person can become entrapped in these things real quick. And it's a matter of seconds, not a matter of minutes, as far as being able to save a person.
For more information about this program or how to schedule one in your area, call the Farm Bureau Safety Department at 601-977-4242. We'll have more of Voices of Agriculture right after these messages. 2/3 of Mississippi is covered by forest land, and the state boasts more certified tree farms than any other state in the country. The forestry industry is the second largest commodity in the state, bringing in over $1 billion to the state's economy each year. Of course, forestry industry provides lumber to build our houses and paper for books and writing, but there's a fairly new use for trees in the state. Some of these trees are being made into wood pellets to be used for fuel. A fully grown, mature pine forest takes 25 to 30 years to grow. During that time, smaller, inferior trees are removed from the stand to allow the bigger, healthier trees to flourish. These smaller trees are generally made into pulpwood, but there's a fairly new use for these trees that's helping many Mississippi landowners. Processing these trees into wood pellets gives tree farmers the opportunity to have another market for their wood that they remove from their property.
Market has taken a big dip. But prior to that, International Paper shut down over in Natchez, and the big mill at St. Francisville has been bought, sold, and shut down and reopened 2 or 3 times. Meanwhile, all this old land around here has been growing pulpwood like crazy. Our growth exceeds our cut by almost 2 to 1. And so we desperately needed a market. We needed another customer to put a floor under the market for us.
That customer is Drax Biomass, a company formed in 2011 to support their parent company in the United Kingdom with wood pellets. These wood pellets will be used for power generation to replace coal, lowering their carbon footprint in Europe.
So we have a plant here in Gloucester, Mississippi. We call it Amit Bioenergies. It's named after the county. We have another one in Morehouse Parish, Louisiana, north of Bastrop, Louisiana, called Morehouse Bioenergy LLC. So they're sister plants. So both of these plants that we've located were sited where forest industry had existed and had declined. In the instance of Gloucester, there used to be a large plywood plant here in town that had closed, and also a large paper mill in Natchez, Mississippi had closed in 2003. And so it's very much a wood-based economy. The forests are robust, and when those industries exited, it really hurt the local economy and really the forest landowners, because if it's not a working, paying forest, it's hard for a landowner to keep it in production, competing with other uses that are out there. And similarly in Louisiana, there was a paper mill owned by a large paper company that closed, I think in 2009, in Bastrop, the town of Bastrop, and that mill used a couple of million tons of wood a year. So we've actually put plants in places where we're providing a new market or a renewed market for forest thinnings.
The actual making of the wood pellets is a fairly straightforward process, according to the plant engineer.
The trees initially come in on the trucks. We have unbinding racks that are here for the safety of the drivers to make sure that when they're unbinding the trucks, there's no trees or anything that fall off of them. So once the trucks get unbinded, they pull up to the log crane or the 350 that we have that unloads them. From there, we'll either decide whether we want to put them in our log storage, whether we want to put them in the circle, or whether we want to put them straight into the process. So if we put the log straight into the process, we've got a stem deck that basically loads this stem deck up with the amount of logs, and then the log line operator can pull those into the process when they're needed. So the logs get taken into the log line, and we have a debarker there that actually is just a big drum that will beat the logs together and take the bark off of them. So we debark the logs, take the logs through the chipper there. The bark is dropped out of the bottom of the log line and goes up into a storage pile to be used for fuel. The logs go through a chipper. We make what they call a microchip. It's a very small chip, averaging about 3/8. Once it's chipped, we take it over to a chip pile. That pile is there for storage and surge, and we can pull from that pile as we need to, so that we got an automatic system that stacks it and reclaims it. Those chips are then brought in to the process through the wet chip bin, and we go into a dryer. The bark that is then used for the heat for the dryer. So we also have a stacker reclaimer for the bark. It can pull the bark as you need it and stack the bark, all automated. Chips are then put through the dryer. The furnace is just a big open flame furnace, and we pull the heat off of it to dry the chips. The chips are then taken up into another storage bin where we try to let them sit for a little while to cool down and cure, and then we take them through our first stage of hammer milling. We got the 6 primary hammer mills. From there we go into 2 more silos, which is our dry fiber silos. The first stage of hammer milling gets it down about where we want it, and then we screen the material from there, and we have our second stage of hammer mills that ensures we're down to the particle size that we need. From there it goes into the pellet mills. The pellet mills then just compress the wood down into the pellets that we make. They drop out of the bottom of the pellet mills, go into a pellet cooler where they're cooled down for they can be transported up into our silos. The silos here is the last end of the process. We store there, and from there they go into the trucks.
Once the pellets leave the plant, they're shipped to England to generate electricity.
And they take those pellets and they basically run them through a lot of the similar equipment they were using to crush coal and burn coal. And they burn the wood dust to generate power. The power plant has 6 turbines and boilers. 2 of them have been fully converted to biomass, and 1 is at around a 90% rate on biomass burn at this point. So Drax Power generates about 7 to 8% of the UK's energy, and at surge times much more. So it's a pretty significant player on the grid in the United Kingdom. It's a renewable strategy, and it allows the UK power generators and the European power generators who are using pellets from other plants to leave coal in the ground and develop a low carbon energy strategy. The forests of the South are more than robust to sustain current demand and projected future demand. It's just the right thing to do.
While it's great to know that Mississippi lumber is helping produce energy in England, you can't overlook the fact that this pellet mill has been a godsend to the landowners in South Mississippi.
As far as what we're doing in the forest, we're still taking poor, damaged, degraded wood, the worst the forest has to offer, and we're offering a market for it. We just have a different end use. But quite frankly, we're making a great improvement to the environment, right? It's 80% carbon reduction through our power plant, which is tremendous when you look at other alternative green energy solutions. This one is renewable, sustainable. You can plant a forest and keep it growing, and a working forest is always a healthier forest, so it's better for the local economy as well.
The timber business, it's always a mixed bag, but yes, I could not imagine what we would have done in the last year had Drax not been here. There would have been a lot of bankruptcies particularly among the logging forces around here.
The benefits from a healthy, well-managed forest include lower fire risks, faster growth rates, and an increased wildlife habitat. At the end of the day, a healthier forest is simply better for the landowner and the environment. We'll have more of Voices of Agriculture right after this time out. Stay with us. At the recent American Farm Bureau Federation convention, a Mississippian from Webster County was named National Young Farmer of the Year. In our Meet a Farmer segment, let's meet Billy Tabb and his family. The Tabbs run a row crop and produce farm in Webster County, featuring soybeans, corn, peanuts, and sweet potatoes. Early season rains this year put planting later than usual and created a domino effect.
We're just starting on the beans. All our beans were late because we concentrate on the peanuts. That's our main objective, is the peanuts. That's the only thing I'm really can really pencil in a profit. So that's what I'm working with. So we plant the peanuts, and then everything else kind of falls into place.
This is William's first year to grow sweet potatoes, and he says it's been a challenge.
My brother, he farms a lot of sweet potatoes, and I went to him and I told him, I said, look, you know, we're losing land to sweet potato farmers because of the rent. I mean, you know, it's a profitable crop, and when I asked him, I said, I think I'm gonna grow a few sweet potatoes, so can you help me? First, the task was setting the potatoes was my first ordeal, and we got them planted no problem, and they look good all year, but it was stressful to get them set. Now we're harvesting, which harvesting makes the setting seem like a walk in the park, you know, like rainbows and unicorns. Now I've got 35 people out there on a given day.
William says that peanuts are his sure thing crop, but he likes to have the others for balance.
The rotation has really benefited me. I mean, that's my key. I'm making good crops, no irrigation. I don't want to get any smaller on the row crop. I want to keep a peanut, corn, cotton rotation. And even though I hadn't planted cotton in 2 years, but I'm going to put that back in there. That's what got me here, and expand on my produce.
William says that he owes his success to the way he was brought up.
My dad gave me the knowledge. He didn't even want me to farm, but he did give me the knowledge. He gave me just enough that I had to earn it on my own, and I went through the good times, and I've already been through some bad, so these bad times don't scare me anymore. You know, he gave me the tools I needed to diversify, and I got a lot of good coaching from my brother and the community, so the knowledge is big.
Kayla is a school teacher at the local school district, and they have 4 children. Brady, who is 10, Grant, who is 8, 7-year-old Adelie, and Gibson, who is 2. In our Mississippi on the Menu segment, Nancy Freeman prepares a tasty catfish dish.
Mississippi farm-raised catfish, delicious and wonderful for family meals. I've got a great little recipe here for you that's a catfish appetizer. Would be wonderful to have at your next family gathering or at a get-together with somebody special. So we're going to start out with the base is cream cheese, red pepper, garlic, a little lemon juice, and some Worcestershire sauce, and it's mixed also with a little sour cream. We're just going to put that together. And this is going to be the base to our start. You know, catfish is good business here, and you want to be sure that when you're selecting your catfish that you look for Mississippi farm-raised catfish and at least U.S. farm-raised catfish. There's a lot of inferior fish there in the market, and you want to be careful that you don't bring that home to your family because you want the quality catfish with good nutrition and raised with safe practices. To this I've added a mixture of mozzarella cheese, some black olives, a little green onions, and some orange bell peppers. I'm going to put this in our base. While I'm loading that in there, by the way, you know, catfish is a really good thing for our Mississippi economy. This past year it brought in $185 million in 2015. So get yourself some Mississippi farm-raised catfish. All right, there's our base to it. On top of this, we're going to add a little cocktail sauce. I'm going to spread that around a little bit. Boy, this is going to be really good. On top of that, we're going to put the rest of our mixture with our cheese and vegetables. And on top of that, we put our Mississippi farm-raised catfish. This catfish has been poached in crab oil, and it's going to give a delicious flavor, great for all kinds of things, and make a wonderful meal. So check us out at our website at growingmississippi.org and find out about this recipe and about our catfish farmers here in our state.
We invite you to learn more about Mississippi agriculture and its importance to your daily life. Visit www.growingmississippi.org. That's all the time we have for this edition of Voices of Agriculture. We hope you've enjoyed the show and will be with us again next time. For all of us here at the Mississippi Farm Bureau, thanks for watching.